When was the last time you stopped and asked yourself a question so uncomfortable that you immediately wanted to avoid it? Not a surface-level question, not something polite or socially acceptable, but a question that goes straight to the core of your life. Why do I keep searching for love, yet never truly feel loved? Most people never ask this honestly, because the moment you do, everything you thought you knew about love, relationships, and yourself begins to crack. You can read every book on love. You can watch endless videos telling you to accept yourself or raise your vibration. You can repeat affirmations in the mirror until your voice feels hollow. And still, the love you seek remains just out of reach. Not because you are broken, not because you are unworthy, but because there is something far more fundamental you have not yet understood. And today is not about theory. It's not about motivational slogans or spiritual comfort. It's about a truth so uncomfortable that most people spend their entire lives avoiding it. A truth that, once seen, permanently changes how you relate to yourself and to others. This is not information. This is a key. And once you hold it, you cannot unsee the patterns that have been quietly shaping your life. If you are watching this, it is not by accident. Something inside you already knows there is more. You feel it when relationships begin with intensity but end in disappointment. You feel it when you crave closeness, yet feel strangely alone even when someone is beside you. You feel it when love becomes a source of anxiety instead of peace. These experiences are not random, they are signals. One of the most disturbing insights discovered by Carl Jung was that relationships are not primarily about other people. They are mirrors. And what you experience as attraction, frustration, obsession, or rejection is rarely about the person in front of you. It is about what is unresolved within you, seeking recognition. Think about the last person who triggered something intense in you. Love, resentment, jealousy, admiration, anger. That emotional charge did not come from nowhere. That person stepped into your life as a reflection, revealing something buried beneath your conscious identity, something you may not want to see. We are drawn to people who express what we have disowned in ourselves, and we are repelled by people who remind us of qualities we have buried out of shame, fear, or conditioning. Attraction and repulsion are not opposites. They are two sides of the same psychological mechanism. Both point inward. When you feel magnetically drawn to someone, ask yourself this: what quality do they embody that I secretly long to express? Perhaps it is their confidence, their freedom, their emotional intensity, or their sense of purpose. Very often, what we call chemistry is simply recognition, a recognition of something within us that has not yet been allowed to live. And when someone irritates you deeply, when their behavior feels unbearable or offensive, the question is not, why are they like this? The real question is far more unsettling. What part of me does this person reflect that I have rejected? Perhaps arrogance in others enrages you because you have never allowed yourself to feel powerful. Perhaps dependency disgusts you because you were taught to suppress your need for closeness. These reactions are not moral judgments. They are psychological clues. This is what Jung called projection. The unconscious does not speak in words. It speaks through emotion, symbolism, and relationship dynamics. When an unacknowledged part of you demands attention, it does not knock politely. It appears as fate, as attraction, as conflict, as heartbreak. And this is where most people go wrong. Instead of turning inward, they externalize the pain. They blame partners. They blame circumstances. They assume they are unlucky in love. They repeat the same patterns with different faces, convinced that the problem is always out there, but patterns do not repeat by accident. If you look honestly at your relational history, you will find themes. Perhaps emotional unavailability, perhaps abandonment, perhaps control, perhaps chaos disguised as passion. The characters change, but the story remains the same. And until the story is understood, it will continue to replay. The most painful relationships in your life are not punishments, they are teachers. And the ones who trigger you the most are often pointing directly at the work you have avoided. This does not mean tolerating mistreatment or excusing harmful behavior. It means reclaiming your power by recognizing that your emotional reactions are not random. They are messages. When you understand this, something profound begins to shift. You stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And you start asking, what is this showing me about myself? That single change in perspective moves you from victimhood to awareness, from helplessness to responsibility. And responsibility, in the Jungian sense, is not blame. It is the ability to respond consciously. You also begin to see that just as others act as mirrors for you, you act as a mirror for them. When someone reacts strongly to you, positively or negatively, they are often responding not to who you truly are, but to something unresolved within themselves that you happen to reflect. This realization softens defensiveness and cultivates compassion without self-abandonment. The purpose of this work is not to analyze endlessly. It is to transform. Once you recognize what part of you is being reflected through a relationship, healing becomes possible. And as you begin integrating what you once rejected, something almost magical happens. The external patterns change without force. The people who once triggered intense reactions lose their emotional grip, and different kinds of connections begin to appear. This process is not instant. Integration is not an event. It is a practice. You begin by observing your emotional responses with curiosity rather than judgment. You become a witness to your inner world instead of a prisoner of it. And slowly, the unconscious loses its need to shout through drama. You stop seeking love as something to fill a void. And this is where the most radical shift occurs. Because the truth is uncomfortable, but it is liberating. You cannot fully love another if you are at war with yourself. And the part of you that you reject is the same part that quietly sabotages your relationships. Until you are willing to face it, love will remain conditional, fragile, and painful. But once you do, everything begins to change. There is a reason love feels elusive when you are fragmented inside. The parts of yourself you deny do not disappear. They go underground, and from there, they influence your choices, your attractions, and your fears. This hidden inner division creates an invisible barrier between you and the intimacy you long for. What Jung called the shadow is not only made of traits you consider negative, it also contains your unclaimed strengths, your suppressed desires, and your unrealized potential. When you reject parts of yourself, you break your own wholeness, and a fragmented self can only form fragmented connections. This is why love sought from the outside never feels secure. When you depend on another person to validate your worth, to soothe your emptiness, or to complete you, love becomes a transaction, a fragile exchange built on fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of loss, fear of being seen too clearly. True intimacy requires something most people have never been taught. The courage to face yourself without illusion. Every time you harshly judge someone, you are being invited to look inward. Every time you feel disproportionately hurt, offended, or obsessed, there is something within you asking to be acknowledged. Your strongest emotional reactions are not weaknesses, they are gateways. Romantic attraction, in particular, is one of the most powerful mirrors. We are often drawn to people who freely express what we have suppressed. If you find yourself irresistibly attracted to dominant personalities, it may be because you have disowned your own authority. If you are drawn to people who need rescuing, it may reflect a neglected need for care within yourself. If you repeatedly feel small in relationships, ask yourself where you learn to shrink. Relationship sabotage is rarely conscious. Perhaps you fear abandonment, so you push people away before they can leave. Perhaps you fear being controlled, so you resist closeness even when it is safe. These behaviors are not flaws. They are defenses created by an unintegrated shadow trying to protect you. Healing begins not with self-criticism, but with self-honesty. When an intense reaction arises, the most powerful question you can ask is simple and confronting. Where does this live in me? Not to condemn yourself, but to reclaim yourself. Integration also requires expression. Repressed parts cannot be healed through insight alone. They must be lived consciously and safely. If you have denied your creativity, give it a voice. If you have suppressed your anger, learn to express it without destruction. If you have hidden your vulnerability, allow it to exist in spaces where it will be respected. What was once a source of sabotage becomes a source of strength. One transformative practice is to consciously dialogue with your shadow. Write to it, acknowledge its existence. Thank it for the ways it tried to protect you, even if those methods no longer serve you. This act alone can begin a profound reconciliation within. There is a paradox at the heart of this work. The more you accept what you once judged as unacceptable, the more authentic you become. And authenticity is what makes real connection possible. When two people meet from wholeness rather than need, love becomes a space for mutual growth instead of emotional survival. This is why self-love is not narcissism. Narcissism arises from emptiness and insecurity. Authentic self-love arises from integration. It allows you to see others clearly because you are no longer using them to avoid yourself. Love was never meant to be something you chase. That belief keeps you trapped in lack. Real love emerges when you stop seeking it as a reward and start living it as a state of being. When you no longer need someone to complete you, you become capable of true intimacy. The greatest illusion we are taught is that love is external, that it arrives if we are good enough, attractive enough, or chosen. This belief places us in a position of passivity, waiting, hoping, depending. But love does not work that way. Love originates within you. It is not something you earn. It is your natural state when you stop rejecting yourself. When you practice unconditional self-acceptance, not as a concept, but as a daily discipline, something shifts. You speak to yourself differently. You treat yourself with dignity, even in failure. You no longer abandon yourself to be accepted by others. And when this internal relationship changes, your external relationships follow. You stop attracting from lack and start attracting from resonance. The people who enter your life reflect your integrity rather than your wounds. Love becomes shared rather than extracted. The irony is striking. When you stop desperately needing love, you become capable of experiencing it more deeply. You do not seek someone to heal you. You grow alongside them. You do not ask another to give you worth. You share the worth you already recognize within yourself. Love becomes a practice, not a destination. There will be days when old patterns resurface, days when self-doubt returns. These moments are not failures. They are invitations to choose awareness again. The deepest truth is this: you are never lacking love. You are disconnected from it within yourself. Like someone searching for water while standing in the ocean, you mistook proximity for absence. When you understand this, love stops being a pursuit. It becomes an expression. Every relationship, every interaction, every moment becomes an opportunity to live from that truth. No one will ever love you as deeply as you are capable of loving yourself. And that is not a loss. It is the key. Because when you understand this, love stops being something you seek. It becomes something you are. And from that place, everything changes.